everybody. Good evening, good afternoon, also good morning, depending on wherever you are looking from, whether you are watching us from UK, from US, East Coast, West Coast, maybe Australia. Welcome in this new live stream. Ladies and gentlemen, for the very beginning, this is going to be a live stream, which is going to be slightly different to what you are used to. You are used to listen to native speakers, English American people. And today, the major difference is going to be in the fact that you are going to listen to two non-native speakers. Actually, you are going to listen to two Czech guys. I'm one of them, and my guest is also a Czech professional photographer. For you to know where the Czech Republic is, just as a reminder from your geography classes, this is Czech Republic. We are in the middle of Europe, and basically this is a place where we do not have any kind of tropical forests. Forget about tropical region in our country. Our country is this kind of very nice, calm area where we do have this four seasons, where we change from spring, from flourishing spring to nice, let's say, warm summer to beautiful autumn with different colors around the forest. And obviously, we change to a beautiful snowy winter. So for a landscape photographer, this is a great region. On the other hand, today, we are not going to talk about landscape photography. We are only going to talk about wildlife photography and wildlife photography in a tropical region. This tropical region is a place where many European photographers go to if they want to shoot different kinds of animals, which we have here in Europe. In Europe, basically, the variety of species is much less than the one in tropical rainforests. Therefore, today we are going to talk about tropical region, tropical wildlife, birds, mammals, insects, all these kind of animals you can imagine. And we are going to talk to my friend, our OM System ambassador, and his name is Peter Bambosek. Peter, welcome in the studio.
Hello. Greetings, everybody from all around the globe.
Hi, Peter. I'm very happy to have you here today, actually, because I know your images for many years already. I suppose that some of you, our guests who are watching, is actually almost 200 people watching you at the moment, Peter. So people from all around the world. And
cheers.
As you know, what is it? Oh, a beer. Or is it a beer?
I don't know.
No, it's not a beer. Okay, I was slightly afraid that you are getting drunk during the presentation, and at the end it could be quite funny. But okay, so today we are going to talk about Peter Bambosek, about his wildlife photography, about his images, about not only the images as they look. I mean, they are very beautiful. Actually, the two on my back, in my backside, one is the hummingbird. What is the second one? Is it toucan, Peter?
It's kind of toucan. It's from Pantanal, and the name is Arathari.
Okay, Arasari. Well, I'm not an ornithologist. I apologize myself. So Peter will definitely explain all this about the birds. But the thing is that today we would like you to show us not just the images, but I would like to ask you to show us some, let's say, backstage, how the images are being created, and what kind of environment. Because the images look great, but I can imagine that the environment you are shooting is not that great. But let's see to that later on. And I would also like to ask you today to show us, let's say, some tips and tricks of your shooting, of your using our equipment, Olympus and OM System equipment, obviously cameras, lenses, and all these kind of features which we have. And but for the starters, let's talk about you a little bit. I've got one question which I always ask when I do streams with Czech photographers and ambassadors, and the question is very simple. You probably know, what was the first time, or when was the first time you took your first image? Were you a little boy, or was it all later on?
It was not at the age of children or child. It was in a high school. And I took a camera from my friend, which was taken with a film camera, his pictures. And he asked me not to press the shutter button, please, because it's too expensive. It was a film era. And I just was allowed to focus and look through the viewfinder, and this was my first touch to camera. And my first picture, I really don't remember the first picture, but it was 25 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
25 years ago, that reminds me, actually, this is the very beginning of digital era. So yeah, I mean, 25 years ago, we have just started. I mean, the world has started to discover digital cameras. I remember nobody believed in that at the moment, obviously, because the resolution was, what was it, 400,000, 800,000, 1.4 megapixels.
Mhm.
I mean, not that good, obviously not comparable to film camera, right, at the
Yeah.
moment. But okay, so that was like your first experience with the camera in general. But then you are shooting wildlife. I mean, not just wildlife. You are shooting birds, mammals, insects, as we said. But it's all wildlife basically. What was your first experience with wildlife shooting then?
Yeah, I really don't remember these first time experiences. I dated my first or start of my wildlife photographer career or wildlife photographer path to in a year 2002 when I conduct first trip to Costa Rica. It was my first ever trip outside of my country. It was 1 month trip with my wife. Not that time. Now it's my wife after the trip, and so this is the date or time I started to count my photography era with a wildlife photographer as a wildlife photographer. But before I touch my cameras, I had my cameras. I walk around in Czech Republic and look for some insects and reptiles and anything, but it was more or less struggling. So I visited zoo to learn how to work with animals first, and after we traveled to Costa Rica, everything changed, and since that moment, I totally changed my personality, I guess.
Okay, I fully understand. Peter, let me just share one, or not, not Peter, but I would like to share Peter's webpage with all of you. I do have this banner. It's called sulasula.com. This is your webpage, basically, right? I think we
Yeah.
have posted this link also to the teaser already. And let me just share very briefly with all of you how the webpage actually looks like. Because what you can see is that obviously the webpage exists in Czech, but also in the English language. There's this English flag. So if you click on it, you will see most of the articles, not all of them, not the old ones, but most of the articles you can also read in English language. Like one of the latest ones, this was actually your latest trip to Ecuador and Galapagos, right? With OM1. This was like 1.5 months ago.
It was my latest trip to Ecuador, but my latest trip at all was to Borneo last month. And
All right.
but I didn't write a single word about this trip because still I'm too busy. So I push everything in front of me. But now it seems the new more calmer time is coming. So I will write some articles and again back to the to my websites, which are not much updated at this
Okay.
moment.
I was just about to say that you are too busy because you are getting ready for another trip, right?
Yes, one of the reasons. The other reasons are my children. The other reasons are my workshops and other stuff. So I have this focus at this moment.
I fully understand. I would just like you, all of you viewers from all around the globe, to have a look at the page. I mean, there obviously, if you want to learn something about the gear which Peter is using, you will find it in this part. I mean, there is all kinds of tests and reviews about basically all our latest equipment. You can also see the picture gallery, which is on 500 pixels, basically all the amazing pictures. Basically, like 99% of them are tropical pictures, right? Because that's, for me, it's the only place where you're shooting. I mean, you do shoot here in Czech as well, but this is
Yeah,
just
sure.
your training, right?
I spend in tropics, I guess, in normal times, not the COVID times. I spent for about 2 months in a year in the tropics in several trips. But the rest of the year, I'm here in my country and I travel a lot across my country. But the truth is that I'm not pushing myself to shoot all the time So more or less, I'm finding new places, some potential places, and it was rewarding because during the pandemic time, I had scanned my vicinity of my city, and I spent for 2-3 months just few kilometers around, and I produced nice pictures. I guess people told me.
Yeah, that's good. I can definitely agree with that because I've seen your pictures from Czech Republic as well. Yeah, and then you are also great in, let's say, educating our customers, our clients. So for those of you who do want to, let's say, learn more about our equipment, how to use it for especially wildlife, landscape, and macro photography, then Peter has prepared some kind of video tutorials. He has also prepared a PDF document. This one was still designed on EM1 series, EM1 Mark III,
Mhm.
EM1X, and so on. And as far as I know, you are now getting ready a new, let's say, PDF tutorial for OM1, which is not done yet, is it?
It's not. I have to apologize for people who still ask me, Peter, when you will release new PDF focused on OM1, and I would love to say tomorrow, but I tried to count, and during last 3 months, I had just 8 free days, including weekends. So
Okay.
that's the reason why it's not still finished, because a lot of different circumstances happen in my personal life. I got COVID, for example. My daughters get sick as well, and I have to take care about them. So it's sometimes it's not compatible to my photography path. But I hope I would love to promise something, but I hope starting from tomorrow it will be better. I have no workshops in plan for 2 or 3 weeks, and
Okay.
I would like to focus just for the new PDF because I know a lot of people is waiting for it. So I promise I'm working on it. During my trip on Borneo, I did a lot of work on this new PDF, but now I have to continue and finish to the final stage.
So we are very much looking forward to it. On the other hand, just from the pictures which I'm just showing, it actually looks like it's not just PDF, it's like printed document, but it's not printed, right? Just to make everything clear, it's a PDF file.
It's a PDF file, but this is just preview. Everybody who buy this PDF can print it. This is the example, and I have a lot of feedbacks that people print my PDF for their personal use. So
Okay.
feel free to print it. It's okay. It's just for you.
Okay, great. Perfect. Peter, I would like to go to your presentation now, but actually you need to share it with me because I think we have
It's
lost
not
the
sure. Oh,
sharing of your
sorry.
presentation. Yeah. So it'd be great if you could turn it on. And once I see it, I'll put it into the
No rush,
studio
no
so
rush.
everybody
I will
can see.
share it. Here you are.
Okay, here we are. Great. Okie dokie. Just one thing I want to, let's say, inform all of you who are watching us now at the moment. If you don't have time to watch the full video now, don't worry, because the video obviously is going to be recorded and is going to be stored at our YouTube channel. So you'll be able to see it at OMSYSTEM.Cameras anytime, basically, from now on in the future. And also, please wait until the very end, because at the beginning you will see some amazing images. But if you want to learn some, let's say, tips and tricks, they will come maybe in the second half of the presentation, maybe even later on. So technical tips and tricks later on, great images at the beginning, and all kinds of stuff in the meantime, backstage and so on. So Peter, please go ahead. I will kindly interrupt you from time to time, if you don't mind. And obviously I will be watching your comments. So please feel free to ask Peter any questions and I will follow it. And every single time there is some nice question for you, I will definitely put it on.
Okay, so let's go. This is me. This is my introduction. Tom already mentioned that I'm photographing for years. I've been wildlife photographer for 20 years or so, maybe 21, I don't know. And I'm not particularly focused in birds or just for mammals or lizards and anything. I'm focused to every kind of animal I meet, including insects, including reptiles, snakes. By the way, the snakes were the main reason why I started to travel in tropics, because I used to breed snakes in my home, and I wish to visit their homeland. So that was the first reason for my traveling. And now it's for 6 years, I guess. Yes, starting from 2016, I switched to Olympus, and my first trip to Tenerife starts new era of my trips. And here you can see all my trips I conducted with my Olympus cameras. I visited several times Ecuador, Malaysia, Borneo. I returned to Pantanal. Actually, within next 2 weeks, I have to return again to Pantanal. I've been in Panama, Shetlands. I shortly visited Galapagos. It was my dream for many years. So here is a list of my recent trips. You will not see just pictures from a particular trip. You will see mix of all the pictures, and I will focus for two major themes. When the tropics are behaving like paradise, photographer's paradise, and on the other hand, there is a second main topic when it is behaving like a hell, a real hell for a photographer. I will.
Peter, let me stop you right here at this beautiful images of which every single one actually represents one of your trips to all kinds of tropical places. You said 2016. Basically, this was the time when we have met, when you had the EM1 Mark II at that time on your very first test, right? On your first trial.
Yeah.
So basically, just for everybody to know how you actually became an Olympus photographer, because previously you have been shooting on different brands, right? Isn't it true?
Yes, I've been using a full frame system from Canon, and I was really satisfied with the image quality and everything. It works for me perfectly. But I guess, as many of us, which we switched to Olympus, the main reason was the weight of the total equipment. Based on one camera and one lens, it doesn't make sense. Sometimes people ask me, why did you change your camera? Because they have small bodies and they have small lenses. That's true. But usually I use 6 or 7 lenses and two bodies, two cameras in my backpack. And the total weight of this combination was 15 or 16 kilograms. And I had already 20 trips behind me, and I was really tired, especially in a trip to Amazon, which was very tough and I guess it was the most intensive trip in all my career. I was thinking I have to change something. It makes no sense for me because I was kind of burnout from holding the camera. The very important part of this is I am handheld shooter since my career starts. So I usually not use my tripod, neither with Olympus, and even before. I try to be very active, very creative, and I found the tripod is great for safari, for bird feeders and other stuff. But most of the time I'm walking during my trips, and I try to be very flexible in terms of angle of view and so on. So handholding of 6 or 7 kilograms in my hands was too much for me. So I said I have to try something different. I really didn't know what it will be. And then accidentally I received email from Thomas, and he let me know that he found my work and he would like to offer to try Olympus cameras. I said, okay, why not? I'm on the crossroad, and whatever happens can happen. So I tried for 2 weeks, I guess.
I remember you didn't want to return it after 2 weeks, actually.
Yes, actually, that's true. At the first moment, I have to say I was shocked by menu system. It was so extensive, so huge, and I didn't understand a single part of the menu. And it took, I guess, 2 or 3 days of practicing. when I started to be friends with the menu. But after a week, I said, okay, I understand how they mean it. It's extremely, extremely huge. But on the other hand, the number of features was incredibly high. I never seen camera before, and I guess there is no camera on the market, single camera, containing all the features one can find on OM1 or EM1 Mark III. I think cameras have 2 or 3, 4 features, but all the features in a single camera, I'm guessing it's not maybe 1 or 2, but I'm not sure. So
yeah, you mean like those specific features, like the high-res shot, pro capture,
yes,
and so on,
sure.
and so on.
And every feature has its own setting, its own logic. You can switch Olympus with a dialing logic for Canon, Nikon, everybody is working with some camera for years and now have to switch. So it's very tough task. And I turn my Olympus camera to previous logic of dealing with the buttons and so on. And after 2 weeks, I said, okay, why not? Probably I have to start. So I said, is it possible to keep it or buy it, or how we can deal with this? Because I need it. Yeah.
Yeah. So at the end, everything went well, let's say, and you basically bought all sorts of your equipment. And today, or after a couple of years, you basically became a Olympus ambassador. Today, it's OM System ambassador, and we are actually very happy to have you. One of the reasons is because you are great in educating others. And this is why I actually showed your web pages at the very beginning. Peter, exactly. This is exactly the slide I wanted you to show us, because I've got one question from Catherine Constantiu. I hope I'm reading the name well. Do you find the 150-400 too heavy to carry and use all day? This is the wide, we call it, or Peter actually named this lens. He named it White Gandalf.
Yeah,
from
because it's a wizard. it's a magic lens. I never worked with a similar concept of the lens before. I think this is amazing one, and it's heavy. It's 2 kilograms. It's very heavy comparing to these small lenses. Sure. But comparing to anything I used before, including the full frame, including the other stuff, it's incredibly small. And I'm not sure what is the weight of 300 2.8 from Canon. I guess it's 2.5 kilograms or something like that. And so it's not heavy, but the reach from recounted 300 to 1000 in a single lens is incredible, and there is nothing similar on the market now. I have a few pictures later in the presentation where I can show the comparing size of this huge lens to normal wildlife lenses, and it's incredibly small. And yes, I'm wearing this lens all the time. If I'm in Ecuador, in Costa Rica also, I'm not wearing this lens in Borneo, for example, because most of my trips to Borneo are focused to small animals like insects, lizards, frogs. So this makes not much sense to wear it all the day. But in Ecuador, actually, I wear it 10 hours per day, I guess.
So basically, the answer is no, it's not that heavy, and I can carry it around all day long.
It is. I cannot say it's not heavy. It's amazing. It's like a feather. No, it's 2 kilograms. If you are able to wear 2.5 kilograms, including the body, I guess it's not much. But you have to count the other part of equipment. It means it's not just photography equipment which you have to take along. You have to take water, usually 1 or 2 liters of water. You have to have a flash and 4 batteries and extender and so on. If you put this all together, it's not just 2.5 kilograms. It's, I guess, 6 kilograms together. But in the same amount of equipment and food and drinks and anything with full frame, I was easily at 10 or 11 kilograms. And that's the difference. So I'm wearing my camera with this lens on very comfortable slide. What is the strip?
Strip, yeah.
Strip,
Or
yes.
Strap, yeah.
Yeah, stripe. And on this stripe, it's very comfortable to wear it. But if you, yeah, that's it. And I have my backpack on my bags with the other stuff, other equipment. Not every time I use all the lenses, but usually I take all with me. The reason is simple, because when I'm walking through a forest, focusing on bird, 100% I will find the best beetle ever. And this lens is not made for beetles. It can make nice pictures of beetle, of course, but if you wish to have really nice picture of beetles, I would recommend smaller lenses like 8-25 or macro 60 or something. So I usually take all my gear along with me, and this is the reason what makes the difference from my previous experiences with full frame, because I usually take all my equipment along with me. But if you are walking just with this camera, with the camera and this lens for 2-3 hours in a forest, just some short walk, it's amazing. It's easy to carry.
Great. Thanks for the reply, Peter. So you are carrying 2 cameras then, 2 flashes. I see some remote control for the flashes.
Yes.
Basically, what is it? 41. Oh, you have got a new 4150, because previously you had the 4152.8, right?
Yes. This is my really updated equipment. This is what really I have right in my backpack nearby me. So there are brand new lenses like the small 40, 150 and 855, and 2 flashes, 2 bodies, OM1. But regarding to our previous question, I'm not wearing both bodies together. Usually I just wear one keep in my lodge, just in case anything happens. So I not very often use both cameras together if I'm walking. If I'm waiting at the feeder or something, yeah, who cares? They can be, one can have attached 150, 400, and the other, for example, some smaller one, wider for more environmental pictures. That's the way, but not in a walking part of my trips.
There is a question for this small lens in the right corner next to the remote. Is the wide-angle lava, right?
Yes, it's lava. It's 10 millimeters. It's fully manual lens, and I like these tiny lenses because if you say yourself, I just take my camera and 150 and 400. Every time you have space to have this small one. Every time. If you say my backpack is full of other stuff, this always is possible to squeeze in the backpack. So I love these small lenses for wide-angle photography. I will show some examples of wide-angle wildlife later in this presentation.
Sure. Good. Okay, show us some images if you have them ready.
I'm not sure if we reached the part of images, but yeah, sure. I'm just kidding. And this is how I have all the equipment in my backpack. All lenses you saw before. This is how I wear it on my bags. So if I this main camera and main lens have on my stripe, the rest is in my backpack. I remove the second body and place some snacks for walk.
Yeah, please notice, all of you who are watching now, that Peter is using some kind of what is it? Stickers, the green camouflage stickers on the lenses and on the.
Yeah,
on the lenses.
you mean this? Yeah, that's true. That this is normally this is white if you buy this lens, and I'm using some. Yes, it's a kind of sticking.
Stickers, some kind of stickers, camouflage stickers.
Yeah, which covers the lenses, and it's commercial offer. It's not my my product. It's a commercial offer, and you can keep your lenses and bodies in safe from scratches and from other parts. And in case of white Gandalf, it's more. It's better to have camouflage the lens, because the white lens in forest is visible from every single corner. So I keep my my equipment more invisible if possible.
Absolutely, I agree.
So here we are. This is the first part of my talk, and this is how we usually feel the tropics. It's a really paradise. You can find amazing animals, amazing creatures, and as I mentioned before, I am not avoiding any kind of creatures. So you will find in my portfolio birds and reptiles. I love frogs, especially glass frogs, which are amazing. You can see through the frogs. You can see internal organs, and it's perfect. I love the way how big mammals are hunting, especially jaguar. It was kind of luck, I know, but it was perfect. Uh, I spent a lot of time during the night for walks and for searching wildlife. I love feeders and all the stuff what happens around the feeders. Uh,
I think the one, if you can come back one slide, this is the hummingbird. I think you have won some prize or award with, right?
hmm.
Or am I remembering, or isn't it?
No, it's a very fresh picture, so it didn't reach any award so
Okay.
far. I don't know if it's if it's reached any time, but yeah, this is one of my favorite pictures from the last trip to Ecuador from
Yeah.
March this year.
Actually, I know why I remember it. I remember it because I saw it at your webpage. I'm just putting it down as a reminder, suasua.com, for all of you. If you want to see more of Peter's images, go visit his webpage. And yeah, and actually, Peter, tell me, this Sula Sula, what does
Mhm.
it mean? It's not your name. You are Peter Bambosek, right? So what is Sula Sula?
Yeah, in a time when I was searching for my domain, most of Czech domain with Czech.cz was already taken, and the
Okay.
same happens in English names. So if I would like to have domain tropical wildlife photography, which is extremely long, for example, it was gone. So I was thinking, peterbambosek.cz or .com is too
Hmm.
complicated even for people from my country. So it's I have a little bit unusual name, and it's hard to pronounce for Czech peoples and definitely for foreigners. So
But
I
Sula
was
Sula means nothing in Czech, right? Sula Sula means nothing
no,
in
no, it
Czech.
means nothing. But in
Right.
it's actually it's Latin name of
Okay.
beautiful bird, tropical bird, and I was invented by this name when I
Hmm.
spent time in a nesting colony of red-footed booby in Belize.
Okay.
And I was staying on a platform overlook all the nests of red-footed boobies. They were all around. Unfortunately, in the middle of day on direct sun, it was horrible, horrible environment at this moment for taking pictures. And I just take one single picture of this bird, and this is exactly the bird. It's a
Hmm.
red-footed booby. Some the translation for us in my country is something the stupid one with red foots, red feet. So,
But the
but I
Latin
like
name is then Sula Sula, right? Of this bird. This
Latin
is the
name.
Latin
Yes,
name.
exactly. Latin name is Sula Sula. So I said, okay, it's easy. It's a one word two times. And when I returned to my lodge, I checked the domain, and after I found it's free, I booked for myself. So that's the reason why I have Sula Sula. It's a tropical bird living across the globe. It's not just in a Belize, in many countries across the globe, in a tropical part. So that was the reason. But I don't have on my pages a single picture. I guess this one is not in my gallery. And during my trip to Galapagos, where this bird lives as well, I tried to reach the place, but it was booked, fully booked, the trip. So I didn't reach Genovesa Island when they are living. So I have the only one picture of red-footed booby now, and this is this picture. Uh, these foods are mine, and it's perfect. It reflects the name red-footed booby, full with red food. So maybe next
All
time
right.
I will take some nice pictures and nice collection of red-footed booby. But yes, that's the simple reason why I have Sula Sula. It's tropical bird. I like it.
So as I see, there are two kinds or two species of red-footed boobies, right? One is the bird and one is a human being.
Yes, exactly. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Yes. So I just try to mention that I'm photographing everything, and I'm photographing with wide angle, playing with the backgrounds, playing with colors. I really love colors. You will see a lot of colors on my pictures, of course. I love
Mm.
actions. Even I still uh, press my try press myself to be the action emotional as well, not just action itself. I'm photographing frogs and birds from different angles. So yeah, this is the beauty of the paradise named tropics. And all the people which are looking at these pictures say, okay, it's very easy. You come to tropics. There are a lot of animals. That's true, and you can get crazy nice pictures, and that's exactly true. But second part of this presentation, very soon coming, will explain the other part of photographing in tropics, which means environment, which means the other stuff than you wish to photograph, which is always all around.
Mhm.
And this is just a presentation of few pictures to show you my portfolio from tropics from the recent years. All these pictures were taken with Olympus, of course.
Amazing. If you, for example, if you go back one slide to the snake,
Mhm.
to me this just looks like you have just killed a snake, right? Put it into this kind of 8 number position and took a picture of it, right?
I don't
But
know.
it's not true, is it? It's still alive, right? When you're
Yeah,
shooting.
yeah, sure. I don't kill the animals to make their picture. Uh, Maybe it's 6 times or 5 times a year, 5 times, 5 years ago. I'm sorry. I started to 100% photograph in situ animals. I don't arrange the animals. This was in my previous part or previous stage of photography. I sometimes arrange animals in terms that if I found the snake in a bush and very busy surroundings, I gently put the animal on some stick and took the picture and return. That was my
Mhm.
arrangement.
Mhm.
But this is not the uh, this picture wasn't taken by some arrangement. I didn't try to make 8 on this
Mhm.
picture. It's very simple. The snake was climbing up, and
Mhm.
when he reached the upper part of the stick,
Mhm.
he tried to make the other position or other stick reachable, and he stops
Right.
for a while. I took the picture, and he followed the other stick. So this is just a happy
Okay.
accident that he made this shape, this and me staying above the snake. Usually
Mhm.
we take pictures from the side, but I try to make the picture from above because this is a tree dwelling species from Malaysia. It's a
Yeah. That's what
bit
makes
like,
it really nice. I mean, this image. Yeah.
yeah, I
Beautiful.
like it. And this is the only picture in the series with such a symmetrical shape. On the
Mhm.
other pictures, it's not so perfect. So I deleted all the other pictures and keep just this one.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is just part of my portfolio, and in this part, I would like to share some feelings with the tropics as a whole.
Mhm.
Usually, it's very different from my country. For example, if I reach our forest in my country, I can look through the forest for 20 meters or 50 meters because it's very clean. Everything is visible. If there is a woodpecker, he is flying from one trunk to other trunk. I can see him all the time. But in
Mhm.
tropics, especially in highland forests, which is this one from Ecuador, nothing is visible from you to 10 meters. It's crisscrossed by small trees and other plants. There are a lot of epiphytes and orchids and ferns and everything, and it's all together. I'm sorry.
Mhm.
And the other part is that these trees are reaching 20, 30 meters above, and you are just looking for anything happens on this trail, because the other part is not reachable. You cannot reach the forest without the machete, for example. So you have to follow the path and cross your fingers that you will find something in a height of 2 meters from ground to 2 meters, and somewhere around the trail. But the forest is 3D, three-dimensional. So everything is anywhere from you to 30 meters above to in 20 meters in deep in the forest. So it's very hard to find something. So you have to walk and walk if you wish to avoid just feeders, which is of course possible to spend the whole time on the feeders. And sometimes you will reach some beautiful creatures. Sometimes people don't like it because from the childhood we know that spiders are bad, snakes are bad, everything is potentially danger. So sometimes you have to be careful. The other part is in this part, this region of the world, the people are really poor, and they are curious what happens if a person with a lot of gear reach their village, like here in Madagascar, and he's trying to make picture of the common lizard of chameleon, which is very common in this area. So they are all going to see what happens with you. And in this environment, it's hard to get nice picture, for example, because I need for a nice picture, I need some imagination, I need some feelings. And at this moment, I just feelings, oh my God, how many are here? And they are noisy, they are touching, and so on. So it's hard sometimes to make a picture.
And I imagine they must be wondering, why are you actually taking pictures of animals that they know
sure.
like their whole life, right?
Yeah.
Why is this guy taking this picture of a snake or whatever, you know?
Yeah, but in our garden, they are happy that somebody is visiting their garden, and I understand. But for me as a photographer, it's a little bit too much pressure from the people, and not just the local people. And sometimes things happen in unpredictable scenario. For example, this is in Sachatamia. Sachatamia is the name of a lodge I have on my cape. And this is shelter for photographer of tanagers. Tanagers are very colorful birds. And what happens here? I was in my it was my first time once we arrived to this lodge, and I called to my wife, hello, I'm safe, I'm in Ecuador, I'm in the lodge, I'm just watching tanagers. I'm heading back to the lodge, to the other doors here, for breakfast. And after I return, I will take some pictures. So this is what I saw. And it's beautiful. The tanagers are perfect, extremely perfect birds for photography. So I returned to the lodge, and with my friends, we do the breakfast. And one of our friends said, okay, I will go to photograph the tanagers because I need to photograph something. I said, okay, I will follow you later. After 2 minutes, strange sound was hitting the lodge. And what happens? This bus with tourists was going through this height, and he totally damaged it, including my friend, which which was here down below the roof with one older woman from the bus.
Okay.
Luckily, nothing happens to my friend. The lady has some scratches on her head, so they have to call doctor and anything. But this was the end of our photography part at this lodge, because we wished to photograph hummingbirds and tanagers, and tanager hide was damaged. So this can happen as well, and you have to change your plans all the time. Anything can happen all the time.
So the danger doesn't always come from poisonous snakes and spiders. It can come from the bus running around.
Honestly, I feel danger only in 2 cases: with tiny stuff like this, and with people. If I try to avoid people all the time, I try to find the places where I'm alone with the nature, Only if it's necessary, I try to be in a bigger group. But that's the reason why I take people along with me, and only 3 persons follow me on my trips, because small group is still better than a large group.
Sure.
And the other danger, it's not danger, but it's part of tropical photography. It's these small animals. These are river ants from Sulawesi, which are building their nest in leaves. And as you saw before on a previous picture from the forest, the leaves are everywhere. The forest is full of leaves. And I accidentally touch this fresh nest of these ants, and they bites me all around the neck and back and everywhere. I was covered with these ants. I was bitten everywhere. It was very painful, but not for a long time, luckily. And this is also part of the photography, because I was following my guide, but my guide was smaller, so he passed and I hit the leaves. The same is this spider from the same forest. Usually the spiders are building their nest vertically, but this spider has it horizontal, and it's 163 centimeters from the ground, I guess, because I met a lot of these spiders. They are really tiny, they're beautiful and tiny, and I ate maybe three of them before we reached the apes. So this is one of the parts.
You are too high, you know. You are too high.
Yes,
you need to be.
And my guide was surprised, as always, return. And what happens? I asked, oh no. And he passed the same path before me, but he was smaller. He was like this. So I keep all the stuff in my face. And this is from the same trip in Sulawesi. I was bitten by invisible gonone flies, and this was really painful. I had 100 bites all around my legs, and after 3 days, I was almost crying with the pain. So the only cure I can have in this part of the world was laying in a sea and let the salt water make its work, and it helps me. So that was the only cure I have for these bites.
But Peter, sorry to interrupt you. With all these images you are showing us, you are trying to discourage our viewers to ever visit tropical forests.
No. I'm just saying that the paradise, which they can see from the picture, have the other side, and this is the hell, and it's part of the trips. It's normal, and this is from my last trip to Borneo. Actually, I really don't know what happens with my arm, but after I return from a night trip, I look at my arm and it looks like this. It looks like this for 4 days. It was a little bit painful, but not much. And after it disappears. I don't know what happens, but I had it on both on my arms. Really don't know. This is one of the most painful experience in tropics for me. I was bitten by Malaysia wasp, and it was attracted by night. By night, I usually wear my torchlight, and I hold it like this to keep all the reflections on my eyes. And it attracts the wasp, and she came to my T-shirt in this space. Yeah, and I take my arm back to my body, and something painful happens. And this was my very short Rambo period. After 1 week, it disappeared, for example. But it's a little bit painful.
One hand Rambo. Right?
Yeah, one hand Rambo, exactly. So this is the reason why this picture always makes me happy and smiling, because I'm not afraid of large animals, snakes, and other stuff. But if I see something small is approaching, from all the bites before, I learned that something bad is coming. This is another part of the living in the tropics or photographing in tropics. These are terrestrial leeches. We have leeches in our ponds, but in Borneo, for example, there are leeches which are walking around the forest, and this short video was taken simply but by holding my hand above the leech, and the leech is feeling the heat and blood, and is coming up and up and up. It was our personal leech, because it was resting just in front of our lodge. And when we went out, we took our shoes, it starts to be active.
So it's coming after you, basically.
Yeah, it's coming after me, of course.
Oh, God.
In the tropics, you can find something special. It's a large version of animals we know in, for example, Czech Republic. We have earthworms in Czech Republic, but much smaller than in Ecuador. And this is the small one I found last year. We found during our trip a bigger one. Actually, it was the biggest earthworm I ever seen. It's like this.
Is this an earthworm? Isn't it a snake? It looks like a snake. I mean, for the size, right?
Yeah, it looks like, but it's totally harmless. This is how we hold it, and we made some selfie pictures because it reached our lodge where we photographed the hummingbirds, and my friend was calling us, "Oh, guys, you should see something." So we reached him, and something incredible came across.
Ladies and gentlemen, imagine you have a garden, nice backyard, and normally you have it filled up with thousands, maybe hundreds of earthworms, right? With this one, you will only need one.
Yeah.
It will do the work.
And by the way, I get nice comment in a Facebook page when I publish this picture. Somebody comments, I really can't imagine how big are local moles. Earthworms are this size.
Yeah, right. So, because moles are usually fighting earthworms, right? So.
Yeah. So this was some struggle which you have to deal with if you are walking in a forest, and I would like to show the different struggling situations. For example, sometimes it's very easy to make pictures of wading birds simply by putting yourself in the water and waiting for the wading birds. There are some amazing places in Florida, for example, where the birds are very, how to say, associated with people, so they are not afraid if anybody's walking around. But in certain places, you have to wait still and don't move. And you can get great, nice pictures of white egrets or the wading birds as well. But this is what happens with photographer at the same moment, because this is particularly from Belize, and I was stuck in the mud at the edge of the beach where no sand was making the beach, and it was just a mud, the reason why the wading birds were coming here. But
Peter, sorry to interrupt again, but tell me, you are not naked on this picture, are you?
I'm not naked.
Okay.
I have my dress here, so you can see the only dry part of my body is the right part, because I'm holding my camera by this hand, and it's totally clean, as well as the other part of me. And there is also one blue clean part, which was my try to avoid some tries of small stuff living in the mud, which was trying to get inside to some unusual object sitting there. So this is what I call a blue safe line, which I try to keep to be
safety strip.
Yeah, to be parasite free. So this is the backstage of this kind of pictures sometimes. And the other part of my trips, and I mentioned it before, and I return all the time to tropics for night walks and night photography. I try to make some big collection of night photography pictures. And the reason why I reach the forest at night is that at night, totally different kind of species alive. It's hard to find frogs in tropics during the daytime, but in the nighttime, it's much easier. They are calling, they are looking for some prey, and that's the reason why I'm reaching the forest in the night as well. So
actually, these images actually answer to the question from Fernando Delgado. Hi from Portugal. Do you use frequently flash on macro photo? So basically, these are the images where you use flash, right? Most of the time.
Yes,
Or is it
at the night, it's hard to get some picture without the flash. I started with night walks, I don't know, 10 years ago. And for the first part of my night shots, I used LED, the permanent lights. But it's very nice in terms that you see the final picture just before you press the shutter button, because the light makes you perfectly all the shapes and all the colors you will see on the final picture. But it's a very weak light, and you have to use high ISOs, slower shutter speed, and you will not reach the best results. So for these pictures, I guess all the pictures were taken with flash, with some diffuser attached on the flash. Because then you can use f-stop, for example, 9 or 8, which means 16 in a full frame recount. You can use 1/100 of second of shutter speed, so it's very, very nice. And the ISO can be kept around 80, 200, very low levels. So these are my just few night pictures. As I said, I'm focusing to anything. I'm not focusing just for birds and mammals, but all the stuff. But
I'm about to ask one question, Peter. Sorry, if you go back to the ant carrying this leaf, it's I think 2 slides. Yeah, this one. First of all, I saw it in some competition,
Yeah.
which we'll talk about later. But secondly, can you explain to those who don't know how you do this picture, this type of image?
Of course, and I will explain later.
You will? Okay, great, perfect. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's part of my
Okay, I didn't know you
tips
have it
and
prepared.
tricks part of this lecture.
Cool.
So, okay, I just would like to mention that if you wish to get these pictures, there is also the other side of the paradise. For example, for glass frogs, which are living around the small streams, its easiest way is go through the stream. And sometimes you have to go for 2-3 hours with a path leading through the stream to see the small frogs. This is my latest picture from Borneo. It's 2 or 3 weeks old picture. This is how I leave my my lodge to night forest walk. You can see I have raincoat on my backpack, but not on myself and not on my camera, because it's really durable and it's survive for sure. I have a lot of experiences with wet. I have a headlamp which I use just for handling camera sometimes, but not for the main light. The reason is simple. If I turn on this headlamp, it attracts a lot of insects, and they are still buzzing all around my eyes. So I try to avoid to use it as a main light. I have my camera. I have my flashes, 2 flashes with diffuser. I try to switch them time to time. This is my stripe I mentioned before. And this is it. After a small rain, I said, okay, it's perfect time to start. And this is what happens later. This is my night walk. And this is exactly what happens in tropics, because it's rainforest. There is raining, and it's usual. It makes sense. Anybody say, of course, it's rainforest. It's raining, so go ahead. But try it at home when it's this kind of rain. Just take your jacket and go outside to make some pictures. Nobody is willing to undertake this adventure. But in the tropics, it's normal. It's a part of the trip, and this is the other side of the night walks during the wedding season, or how to say it, the raining. This happened in our bathroom time to time, and this happened every night in Borneo if you are walking for 6 hours at night, because it rains 2 or 3 times during the time, and it's the hands are going like this.
So basically everything gets wet, as I see. And we have a nice comment, just to interrupt you for a second. Chris Petmore says he spends a lot of time in the tropics of Asia and Australia in late 70s and 80s, and the humidity eventually killed my OM1, the original one, obviously, the film one, not the new one. It was in 70s, 80s. Modern Olympus weather shielding would have been very welcome in that time. That is absolutely true, because, I mean, as you said already, I mean, EM1 series, Mark II, Mark III, EM1X, and obviously OM1, they are absolutely durable cameras. They withstand just about everything from the water, from the rain, to the dust, to the freezing temperatures. You know, they are really very durable cameras and equipment.
And here is my first tip and tricks, because I am 100% sure the camera survive this kind of rain. Of course, the lens survive. This flash was what's the matter? What's the name for this equipment?
Which, you mean the remote trigger?
Yeah, sure. Remote trigger for the flash is resistant for the water, but there is the other part you have to take in mind. If you hold your camera in the rain, what happens here? Your hand is very warm, and if you are hit it by the cold rain, this can happen with your camera. It's not the result of water inside the camera, but this is the result of interference of your heat on your hands and the rest of your camera. So I highly recommend not hold for a long time your lens with your naked hand to avoid get foggy. It disappears. This disappears within, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes in temperate to the outer temperature, and it was okay. But after I found this frog, I said, okay, it's perfect. So I placed my handheld flash with diffuser, took first picture, second picture. I said, okay, what happens? And then I realized, okay, that's the reason, because I try to keep the camera and lens from the heavy rain, and it was not necessary. And I just made this illusion of fog. There was no fog actually.
Okay.
So my first tip is believe your camera, believe your lens, keep it wet, but not touch for a long time if it's raining heavily, because the difference of your warm and the temperature of the surrounding can cause this fogging.
So you basically just answered the question of Marsha Zangronitz, who asks, how do you keep the rain off your lens during rain?
I'm not keeping rain off. I try to keep my cameras dry after I return. This is how looks my room in a Borneo after I return to the room. That's the reason why I love 4-bed rooms just for myself, because this is me drying out. This is my t-shirt. This is my trousers. Other t-shirt. My camera backpack is open, and on the left side up there is a fan which is making the waves of the surrounding. So that's the reason why I always keep higher priced lodges, not the most expensive, but I try to avoid the lodges which are for a few bucks, for $10 per night. Usually you will not get full access to electricity, and usually you have not full access to dryness, because one of the most important part of my trip is keep your equipment wet. Nothing happens, but after you return to your room, try to make it dry again. And this works for me so far. After 20 trips with Olympus, I can confirm nothing happens so far with my equipment if I keep it wet outside, but try to dry out overnight, for example. So sometimes people keep the camera inside backpack and it zips on, and after they open it hits the fog, and it's very hard to avoid the fogging during the day. So this is very important part. And I try to on the other side, I try to avoid air condition at least the lower temperature of air condition, because it kills the equipment. So I usually try to dry out my equipment with fan.
Okay.
And this is my room. This is typical room on my trips to Borneo. And the wet is everywhere. Everywhere is muddy. It's sometimes it makes no sense to keep the usual shoes. So I use my rubber boots, which is one of the best part of my equipment, because sometimes we have to deal maybe sometimes for 20 meters in a forest trail with this mud. But sometimes these 20 meters with normal shoes is end of the trail. So if you use the rubber boots, you can pass through, and it makes sense. I use my rubber boots on my trips to Borneo, and this is from my last trip on May this year. And I had rubber boots. I was happy I have rubber boots, but what I didn't remember, everything is rotten. So I fall down through this boardwalk, because when I step on this rotten wood, I fall down through this hole, and I was a little bit crushed for 2 days after this fall. But yeah, I survived.
You survived, like you.
So after this experience, I try to keep walking on this middle part of the walk, and there's a lot of missing logs. You can see it up on the upper part of the image. Somebody else was falling before, so it's very easy to get some injury if you are walking and you don't think pretty well.
Peter, we have let's say a refreshed version of the question about how do you keep the rain off the lens. Marsha actually meant, how do you keep the water from the front of the lens? You know, whether you still have constantly have a microfiber cloth, or clean it all the time, or how do you keep this part clean?
You mean the tip of the lens, the glass, the front. Okay, so yes, simply I use my lens hoods and lens caps on my cameras during the walk, and after I find something, I remove it. Sorry, I remove it and I take it back.
Okay.
So
if there is some water, you probably wipe it with some kind of fiber cloth, right?
Yeah, sure, of course. This is another tip. Keep this cleaning equipment in a separate plastic bag, because if it's raining and it's on the top of the backpack, it sometimes takes the wet from the surroundings and it's wet itself. So I keep it in a separate plastic bag, and if I need to use it, I take it away, take it back.
And one question still to this topic: how do you change lenses in the rain, or do you?
I try to avoid. That's a good question, actually, because that's what I was struggling with my previous equipment, with the full frame equipment, because it's not just to switch them, but they have some weight, and you have to keep your camera, of course, usually this way, and remove your lens to avoid to get some wetness. But you have to be quick. You have to hold the other stuff. So sometimes I hold it by my parts of my body, but usually I try to avoid. If I'm or I'm making something like umbrella from my body, and I use the camera holding like this. Yeah. So the rain is
facing down. Yeah, facing down. Right.
So and I learn very quick technique how to remove the lens. I learn my people on my workshops how to make it quick, because what I learned, I didn't know this is some knowledge, because it was something normal for me in the tropics to be very quick with taking, for example, extender. You need to have extender, and I have a really quick, how to say,
quick maneuver, quick maneuver,
which change all the stuff. And I found that a lot of people just I take off one lens and take another lens and make this, and this is not usable in the tropics. So I have some technique which is really quick, really, it's a split of second.
Yeah, so basically, you have the lens prepared in one hand. Second is kind of holding the body and taking up the lens in the same time.
The technique is simple. I just let the lens to be rotatable, but not separate. Just a slightly, but it's not locked. I unlock the lens, but not turn around. And this unlocked lens is ready, and then I make shoot with the other lens. It's hard to explain on this small theater. So, but yeah, but this is a good question. This is a good question. Okay. Yeah. And here is another another situation which you can face in the tropics. In my country, if there is raining, after a few hours, the rivers are rising slowly. We have some reporters that say, okay, tomorrow there will be some floods. In tropics, it's quite different. And I learned it by this basilisk lizard. In a Panama lodge, it's Canopy Lodge in Panama, really nice, really highly recommended. There were basilisk lizards basking on these stones in very small creek, as you can see. And one very favorite place was this, where the arrow is showing. So I placed my camera on my tripod, I a little bit mask it, and here should be the basilisk lizard. And you can see there is no water. It was on a really dry part of the creek. And this was the look. So here in the front, there is a surface of the stone. I wish to have the basilisk lizard basking, and it was very simple. I keep my left my camera in this position for 3 hours and set time lapse photographing. Every 2 or 3 seconds, it repeats the shot. So if the basilisk will come, they are not quick. They are just coming for 1 hour. If they reach the place, they will stay there for an hour. And I keep the camera here, and we left on a small side trip with the other camera. And the owner of the lodge told me, there should be some rain. You should remove your camera from the creek. And I said, okay, it's in a dry part of the creek. Nothing happens. And he said, still believe me, be quick when it starts to rain. And then I learned what happens. Again, this is the place where I placed my camera. After 30 minutes of rain, this happened with a small creek. And there was the place with my camera. I took away the camera before, but I can't believe what happens with a small creek, which is almost not moving after half an hour of rain in tropics. And that's exactly quite different from what I'm facing here in my country.
And no basilisk anymore, right?
And no basilisk anymore, of course. By the way, this was the only picture I took. This is the only creature reached the stone. There's no basilisk. He found a different stone. And after this thunderstorm, he did disappear for a while. So that happens, of course. So I try to show you both parts of the tropics, which means the best part, which is beautiful, colorful animals. They are everywhere. If you are looking for small stuff like insects and frogs, they are almost everywhere. It has the other part, which is a little bit crazy for European, Middle European person like me, but still I feel really addicted to tropics. And I need to return every year. But because what I saw in the tropics within 2 weeks, I hardly see here in my country for 2 or 3 years. It's quite a different experience. So I try to return all the time, whenever it's possible, whenever it takes. Sometimes it takes a lot. So this is what still take me back to the tropics. So this is first part of my lecture. There's a second part prepared, just for the strong ones. And I'm just asking if there are some questions before.
I think we have replied quite a couple of them. There have been few more. Let me just check. I mean, there have been many greetings at the beginning. Somebody asked or hopes that the talk will also be relevant to the EM5 Mark III capabilities too. Partially yes, partially no. I mean, EM5 Mark III is a great camera. It has wonderful features. Basically, many of them taken out from the EM1 Mark II, the camera you started on when you started with Olympus, right? So basically, I would say that many of these images that have been shot by you could have been done by EM5 Mark III.
Absolutely.
Obviously, not all of them, but many of them. Yeah. So
many of them. Yeah, sure.
yeah. Then let me see. Yeah, we have answered 150 to 400 if it's too heavy. Compared to 100 to 400. You don't have the 100 to 400, but you did have a chance to test this lens, right? 100 to 400. So from your perspective, how would you compare these two, 150 to 400 and 100 to 400? Obviously, if you forget about the price wise, they are totally different. But from the usability point of view, would you be able to use 100 to 400 for these same images in the same environment with the same results?
No, I guess not the same results. But first of all, I was really surprised with this lens. I didn't have much expectation when I was trying this lens, because I said, okay, it's 6.3 at the end and at the 400 end of the lens. And I said, okay. But after a while, after 2 weeks of trying, I found it very reasonable in terms of price and power of the lens, because it is sharp, but it's not sharp as 300, for example, or 150. These lenses are sharper. They are not, the pictures from 100 to 400 are not blurred, absolutely not. But they lack kind of what I call micro contrast, and you will see it on the feathers, or you will see it on the eyes. If you compare the pictures 1-to-1, if you have this opportunity to compare these pictures, you will see, okay, this is what it's lacking. But if you have no comparison to 300, for example, or 150, 400, you will find the pictures really, really nice. And I know a lot of people who keep this lens, even they bought the bigger one for some small walks, for something, because they know they will have great results. But from my perspective, I would avoid this lens if I would travel to this part of the world for this kind of pictures I'm taking, because 6.3 at the end is not really, how to say, winner. And there, I would still keep something in mind. There is something better. So that was the reason why I didn't keep this lens. I tried it. I found it beautiful. For example, in my country, I guess if people are photographing here, it's perfect lens, because a lot of pictures here is taken by wetlands, for example. It's open area, a lot of lights. You can get great pictures, great bokeh. It will be fast. It's perfect lens. Why not?
Yeah.
But for the tropics, you have to deal with all the stuff you heard before, and I think I would be a little disappointed with the results from this condition, from this particle conditions, from my point of view.
Yeah, I was just about to add one thing. I totally agree with you, because tropical, let's say, forest is slightly different environment. You are under the canopy, under the leaves. The light doesn't necessarily need to be that good, actually. But I personally know quite a couple of wildlife photographers. Some of them are also our European ambassadors, who do use 100 to 400 lens. Yeah. But the truth is, they are not shooting in tropics. They are shooting, for example, African safari. Even here in middle of Europe, they are shooting like deers, and these big animals. Yeah. But they usually shoot under nice lighting conditions. So for this kind of environment, I think 100 to 400 for the price it costs is a brilliant lens. Totally.
It is.
But obviously, once you really are, I'm not saying professional, but once you have bigger demand on the lens, and once you try to shoot with the lens under a difficult, let's say, lighting environment, then obviously 150 to 400 is the winner.
Yeah, that's the real point. You have to use this lens in good I don't mean brilliant, but good light conditions.
Yeah.
And as you will see later in this in my story, you will see how much I use my stabilization on my camera, and I'm really dependent on this. So if you have 6.3 at the telelens, it makes more pressure to hold a longer exposure. And if you try to avoid this pressure, you have to use tripod. And once you use tripod, you have something you have to deal with in the environment you saw before. So it's all together. So that's why I prefer the lighter lenses or wider aperture on my lenses.
Right, right. Okay, Peter, let's go back to the presentation. We still have some slides to go, and now we want to hear your tips and tricks. This is what I have personally been waiting for.
Okay, so all these pictures you've seen before were taken with Olympus, and here is the part of presentation where I would like to explain which of the features the camera have I use in a field. Sometimes I hear that Olympus is over-featured, and there are a lot of nonsense feature nobody uses in field. I'm a different kind of person. I try to use the features if I feel they can help to make me a better result. So a lot of pictures from you've seen before were awarded in a world most prestige photo contests, and I'm really proud for this. And this is not because it has a lot of megapixels and a lot of how to say it's full frame or anything. Full frame is perfect as well as this format, and I just learn how to use my camera to get the best results. And I have a lot of covers of magazines in my country and even worldwide. So here is the first part. I would like to explain how I use the features of Olympus to reach the results I publish on my websites. So here is, for example, very, how to say, the most common bird photographed in tropics, in Central America or South America tropics, are the hummingbirds. And I used a lot of settings to tune up the camera to be hummingbird photographing. I'm sorry, it was my phone. Yeah, okay. Hummingbird photography miracle, and it really is. Especially the new camera OM1, it helps so much to photograph the birds, especially with using your subject detection, which is brand new in this new camera, and it's really responsive. And I use, for example, advanced AF system of this camera to get my pictures. I very often use my personal custom settings of the AF points. And I use different AF points. For example, for hummingbirds, I usually use this kind of point, which is the middle size, let's say. And I use very weak matrix, which is behaving on. Because sometimes you just need 2 steps to get to the right part, or 2 steps to get to the left part from the middle. And I also use the circling of the AF point. So if I'm on the right side with my AF point, just press 1 time to the right, and it behaves that you can see it from the left side, and it's circle all the time. So this is very useful for hummingbird photography. You very quickly place your focus point to the place where you need it. And if you associate this AF point with bird detection, it works pretty well. The other part of these cameras is the speed. And in the new camera OM1, there is 150 frames per second as a highest, I guess it's the highest count of raw images in all cameras at this at the market at this moment. Is it, Thomas?
Yeah, 120 frames per second. I mean, it's basically like fast shooting video. It's not even taking pictures anymore. It's extremely fast.
I found this great, but this doesn't mean that I think you have to set your camera to 120 frames per second for hummingbirds. It makes no sense, actually. But a possibility that you can use high-speed sequentiation is great for particular subjects. So I found it very useful. You will see later some toucans, and it was taken on 50 or 60 frames per second. And when I tune up my camera for hummingbird photography, I usually set this camera to custom setting. This is another feature I really love, because I prefer to shoot at A priority, aperture priority, but sometimes I have to change 6 or 7 or maybe 10 settings in menu in once if I wish to photograph a different species, for example, flying toucan or something, or hummingbird. So when I tune up my camera, I save it in a C1234. And what makes me happy in Olympus camera, that you can assign your button, any button on your camera, to activate this setting. So you don't have to turn your dial to reach C1 or C2. You simply can place the custom regime to your button. And this is really quick.
So this so you don't have to basically switch the dial, the ring dial. You just press one of the buttons, the function buttons, which you assign to it, and you get to C1 or to C3, whatever.
Yeah, and press again, and you return to your basic A priority photography. So this makes things really, really fast.
Yeah, our cameras in general, this is something that they are very famous for. They are very customizable. You know, I mean, I remember even your article, the very first one, when you switched from the previous brand to Olympus in 2016, you wrote the whole article about how you customized your camera to your previous experience. So basically, you set up all the dials as you were used to before, right?
Yeah, and that was the reason why I keep the camera, because if I have to learn brand new behavior, I think I would give up at this moment. But this keeps me by Olympus, and I am a big fan of customization of the cameras. Actually, I'm really pushing Olympus to uprise the number of settings. You know, when I send the feedbacks from my experiences, I usually ask for another and another setting possibilities. So here are the custom settings, my very favorite part of the camera. So as I mentioned before, you can save your camera behavior to C1 or 4 or anything and assign to accessible button. I use always, all the time, the buttons above the shutter button. It's C1 and C2. And sometimes I use one more, but from my practice, 1 and 2 and my A priority is enough for major topics I try to cover. If I need to use C3 or C4, it's usually for night photography, for example. So if I'm in Borneo or in Ecuador, let's say Ecuador is more different in terms of photography in daytime and nighttime. So if I'm working in Ecuador, I'm photographing birds during the day, I use A priority regime. C1 is flying birds, C2 is pro capture, and C3 is night photography of insects, lizards, snakes, anything. And I simply turn the dial because it's very easy, because I will use C3 for whole night. But in the daytime, I use A, C1, C2, and it covers 99% of my topics.
And these are basically the recommendations for specific genres which you are describing or will describe in the PDF, let's say, manual, right?
Yeah,
or
that's
PDF
that's it.
Tutorial.
So I can easily, but simple one press of button, switch from wide-angle photography with its particular aperture and speed and something to slower shutter aperture in combination with flash, for example. So this is what I try to keep in the custom regimes. And sometimes there are a lot of them, more than 2 or 4. I tuned up 4 regimes for each topic. So for animals, which means birds and animals, I profiled, I set up my camera for basic photography, birds in flight, pro capture, panning, and high res. Why not? Sometimes it's breath. And
Peter, there's a question. There's a question to the C1 settings. Once you set a C1 with your chosen settings, can you change the setting once you are in it? Yeah,
there
it
are
is possible. Yeah, I will let you
yeah,
answer.
yeah. There are two ways how to activate the settings. And of course, if you press the button, for example, my favorite button, I don't know what is it. It's compensation button.
Mhm.
It's the camera switch to your preset, and you can change anything. You can change what you want inside your camera. Once you press the menu, it turns back to a priority. If you wish to change your C1, for example, setting, the better way is turn the dial to C1. And there are also two options in the menu. You can keep all the settings you change for future. There is a setting, hold setting, and whatever you change, including in menu, including in exposure, it will be saved without needing to return back and save every single step. And there is also other part. If you tune up your setting as a grade and you don't need to change it for a lot of times in the future, there is other option which means reset. In this setting, you can change anything in your preset, and after you return to return back to C1, it will be again at your previously saved setting. So my way of this of the customization of camera is, at the first moment I keep hold setting in a menu in a custom modes, which means when I turn it to C1, I change some parts of the menu. It automatically save in the camera. After it is tuned up, and I know I will never change many things in the future, I change the setting hold to reset, and it will keep my tuned up setting for future. I'm not sure if it's understandable, but this is the way.
If not, don't worry, we'll all read your PDF manual later on.
Yeah.
But we just had a question about the name of your website. We have discussed already, probably somebody who came later. So I put it on the display again. So it's www.sulasula.com. Yeah, this is Peter's webpage.
And the other feature I really love on my Olympus is the cooperation of mobile app with the camera. I'm not using much the mobile app to make a photography from the app, but I use it to keep my settings. So all these settings are print screen from my mobile phone, and anytime I need some different settings, for example, I will find something special during the daytime and I have to change my setting on C1 or C2 for macro, for example, I just simply connect the camera with my mobile phone, touch the C1 for macro, and upload to camera within few seconds. It all takes 1 minute from start to the end. So in the field, I'm able to change the setting from one to the other. And here is overview of my previous settings for different topics, for wildlife, for macro, for landscape. And all these settings are holded in my mobile phone app. And I take it all the time along with me, because sometimes I need to change it.
It's funny. Sorry to interrupt. If you go back to one slide, it's funny you call the wildlife and you have 4 birds there.
Yeah, but
which I would call birding.
Yes,
No,
I know.
I'm just joking, of course. I mean,
It's okay, it's
obviously.
okay. I feel from my point of view that wildlife is birds and mammals, and
Yeah,
macro
sure.
is everything small. But macro, in its real way, is not a photograph of this frog, for example. This is close up, but it should be close up and macro, wildlife and birds, and
Sure.
so I short it up. That's the only reason.
Don't worry.
Okay, so other features. I'm really happy with the accessories which Olympus offered to their cameras, especially the flash accessories. I use two flashes, Olympus 700 WR, which are controlled by this transmitter wirelessly, so you can hold your flash in your hand and it will be work together. And here we are in the story of this ant running. My already little bit famous picture of running ant was taken in Costa Rica, and I noticed they are wearing very colorful leaves. Usually they wear just green leaves, but they found something colorful, and they were wearing orange and violet and green and yellow. So I made a little setup, and I started with a normal sharp pictures. This picture was taken with camera on tripod, with flash hold it in my hand, and it was taken from above and backlight to get the contour on the leaf and all the small stuff here. And after I took few pictures, I said, okay, it would be nice and funny to make the running picture ATA. But for this picture, for the special picture like this, you need some different settings of the camera. You have to slow down your shutter speed. At this example, it was 1 second. You need a permanent light, which will light the whole 1 second period of running ATA. And you need a flash at the end of the whole action. After 1 second, it have to flash. So I used my torchlight placed in my camera diffuser, and it makes the permanent diffused light on the whole scene. And I used my flash on with synchronization on second curtain to make this effect. So it took 3 hours actually, because I have to find the right place where the ants are running. I had to find right exposure time. It was not just, I know I need 1 second. It was a lot of tries and fails. And after 3 hours, I tuned it up, and I was just waiting for ants wearing different color of the leaves. And after a while, after half an hour, after 6 or 7 pictures, which I was looking for, it started to rain and the ants disappear. But I was really happy that these pictures were very successful in contests. There is almost no post process. It was taken from the camera, which is one of the main reason why I try to take all my pictures with almost no crop, little editing, and just make it in one picture. Here is a close-up photographer of the year, which is calling at this moment, actually, for the entries, and they use my picture as one of the main pictures as a promotion picture for this year. So till 12 June, I guess, you can send pictures to close-up photographer of the year. And this is my running ATA taken in Costa Rica.
Amazing. 1 second exposure, 3 hours of shooting.
Yeah, that's it. A lot of fun, and I learned so much. It's amazing learning lab if you have these ideas. So you have to deal with all the weather and other stuff I mentioned before and create something special, and it's really learning something. And actually, I'm using long exposures very often, and this is another feature I really love on my cameras. And these two are ND filter and live composite. ND filter, I mean internal. I don't mean the ND filter attached on the camera. ND filter is usually used for prolonged exposure, and I know these prolonged exposures from landscape photography. It makes sense to make a landscape photography with the ND filter. I found really interesting thing that happens if you use internal ND filter in combination with low ISO on your camera. For example, if you set your camera to ISO 80 or 64 and use ND filter, internal ND filter, and you underexpose all your parts of the image to avoid overexposure, like on the picture right, after you will push up the shadows, you will get the picture on the left. This is the same picture. I photograph the right one, and in post-process, I simply push up the shadows. Amazing. And it's weird. I will show you in 100% just for fun. So this is Bosque de Paz, the lodge where we stayed in Costa Rica, and this is original picture before post-process. Most of the highlights were kept, so it's perfect. So no need to make the HDR sequence. And this is after I push up the shadows. The crazy thing is that normally you expect that there will be a lot of noise. There will be no grass on the ground. But actually in the real world, it works like this. So this is original.
Yeah.
And this is after the post-process.
So this was live ND. Was it live ND 32 or 64?
This was EM1 Mark III, so it's 32.
Okay. 32.
And it works with both. I didn't have a lot. I didn't make many trials where it starts to be so amazing. So I really don't know. Maybe it works with ND8. Probably it can work because there are repeated exposures. But this is very good. I use this technique a lot of times when I try to take pictures of waterfalls and there was some harsh lighting, and I try to avoid to make the classical HDR 3 or 5 pictures. I took the pictures with these settings even at daytime. It's possible.
Good.
And here is an example of the other my favorite feature for long exposure. It's a live composite feature, which is amazing. I really don't understand the person who created this one, how he say, okay, this could be great feature, let's try. And I say 100% great idea. I use it all the time if it's possible for some lighting for star trails. And in this particular example, it's from Pantanal. And I set my camera to 3.2 second exposure, which was repeated all the time when I tried to expose this picture. And I was waiting for lighting from the storm, which were almost gone. I went here too late. So I said, okay, I will try it. And after, I guess, 1 minute of dark image, one light and really strong sound came from the heaven. And I stopped the camera, ran to my lodge. I said, okay, it was not a good idea actually. And after I checked my images, this is the result, and I'm really happy with this picture, and it was awarded as well. So live composite and ND are great features. This is
the place you got killed, right?
It's a great idea. I recommend it if you are if you try to be brave. Go ahead and during the storm, walk on this iron viewpoint and try to make a picture. So no. I tried first. I went up and say, okay, I will try to make the picture from this position. And after I realized, okay, you are idiot. It's storm, and you will die definitely from this point. So I went down and took the picture from the down part.
Probably the only highest metallic place in the surroundings, right?
Yeah. It's in Pantanal. It's totally flat. Nothing higher and metal is around. So it's almost 99% that you will die on during taking pictures in this place. Oh, sometimes it's more strong than I can avoid. Okay, another feature. Everybody from Olympus know it, and I am really dependent on this function, and it's a mind-blowing stabilization. I took a lot of pictures handheld. I took the pictures with crazy shutter speeds, like this one. This is with a 304 lens, and it's taken on 1/15 of second, 1 split 15 handheld. So I was just taking pictures of standing, not moving egrets, and part of the flock going to the other place, and 1/15 of second. I'm not sure if this is also in higher resolution. Yeah, it is.
So this was the
this
high-res mode?
It's not high-res mode, it's normal mode. It's just ordinary picture, 20 megapixels. But this crazy sharpness is from, I guess, 40th of second. Again, it's very unusual shutter speed for taking birds. I try to push the limits if it's possible. If the birds are motionless, I try to go lower and lower. You can accent the rain, which is not just as a few dots, but you can make it like a stripes all around.
Right.
And this is another example. This is a very ordinary picture. It looks like a ranch picture, but actually it's a in situ picture taken from ground to 3.5 meter high flower. It's heliconia flower, and it's a daytime. My friend noticed there is some frog, so this is taken with 150 and 400, of course, 400 millimeters, including the extender internal. So it's 1000 millimeter, but it was dark, and this was taken with ISO 4000, I guess, or 3200, and 1/15 of second, because it was very dark.
I assume handheld again, right?
Handheld, sure. Once I walking around and it's random, I usually don't use my tripod. I keep all the stuff handheld. I try it. But sometimes, like at this moment, you have to use the tripod. It's impossible to make such kind of pictures with handheld. But it's very similar technique like with the running ends. So in Costa Rica, there is a place where bats are returning to flowers. You can arrange the flower like in this case. But we were thinking how to make it like the bat is approaching the flower. And we use, again, permanent light and 4 flashes. I think, I'm not sure if there is explanation of this picture, but it's very interesting, by the way, because we use the 4 flashes like for hummingbird setting, and the flash is freezing the bat right in the by the flower. And if you wish to have the trail, you need again some permanent light. So we use the LED light. But in this case, it's hard to predict 1 second in advance that the bat will come to the flower. So it's almost impossible to predict that now I have to press the button, he will come and he will be flashed by the flower. So we decide to make it, I decide to make it reverse. So this is not second curtain synchronization. This is first curtain synchronization, which means the bat is coming to the flower, the flash is flashing, and the rest, the movement is in the real live disappearing bat from the flower.
Okay, but, so when he's flying away from
yes,
the flower, then
exactly.
This is the trail, right?
But the feeling should be the bat just approached the flower. That's okay. The feeling I try to make in this picture.
You just disclosed your secret. You know, you shouldn't have told us.
Yeah, I have a lot of different secrets. I will never say. Okay, the other feature is compactness. It's a question from the beginning of our talk that if this is not too big, so I will explain it later. I usually photograph handheld. Sometimes I photograph with just one hand holding the camera and second hand holding my flash with diffuser. I usually use different shape of the external LCD monitor. I don't know what is the name for this in English.
Yeah, LCD screen.
So I turn it to different angles, not just the right angle, but different angles, which I wish. I hold the camera by one hand. I usually focus with a back button AF on, and holding the second with the second hand, I'm holding the flash with diffuser to make my final pictures. And this is comparison to the other lenses which usually people use, because This is my 150 and 400 in Panama, and this is 504, I guess, in full frame. This is two our beautiful cameras, beautiful lenses, in comparison to perfect and very often used 600 millimeters on full frame. And this is the comparison of size. So if I compare the sizes, I try to compare to similar length of the of the lens. Because if you compare, for example, 150 and 400 to 200, 600, it's not the same because the result is quite different. You will have 300 more millimeters reach. So I try to keep it with a similar lenses.
Sure.
And as I showed before, it easily fits to my backpack. It's with attached camera, which is very important for me. Just take away the camera and photograph, no need to attach it later. And here is an example of the advantage of this lens for me. This is perfect place in Panama. If you ever wish to see sloth and toucans and other stuff living in the top of the trees, as I mentioned, it's 40 meters above the ground. So it's sometimes you hear toucans, but they are too high to make a nice picture. This place, it's Canopy Tower in Panama, and you have 360 degrees of view on the rainforest. And you can see different animals. Here is a sloth. Somebody see it here. This is a sloth, and this is
here. Okay.
This is a closer view to the sloth. From the same porch, you can see toucans early morning calling over the forest. It's great and amazing place. And you can also see the raptors. Sometimes they see a harpy eagle here. I was really upset when I read some Instagram picture from this place. A week after we left this place, they were photographing harpy eagle for a whole day. It was resting in eye level place. So anything can happen here. And birds of prey are often coming here. This is very ordinary picture, but this picture is good for my lectures to introduce the wildlife or birds from Panama to my clients and so on. And it's on a green background. But in normal way, you only have the option to take it from lower angle, which means with a white background of the sky. The only reason why I have green background of this picture is that the bird was sitting somewhere here, somewhere in this area. I climbed up the railing here, and I hold my camera with the lens 150, 400 above my head.
Okay.
That was the reason why I reached green background. The other has white background because it's impossible to hold. Maybe you can try it. It's impossible to hold, for example, 500 millimeter prime lens on full frame above your hands, above your head, and keep, I don't know what it was, 20th of second or something like this, aperture. And combination of compactness and stabilization allow me to reach this bird from better position, for example.
To me, Peter, sorry, to me, this is one of the greatest knowledges actually that you and other, let's say, pro photographers teach their clients at their workshops, and that is simply change the angle of view, just by a little bit, by moving half a meter to the right side, left side, up or below, to simply change the background behind the animal. Because it can really only mean a movement of maybe 10, 20, 30 centimeters of the camera, but it can totally change the picture.
Yeah, that's exactly the truth. Yes. Yeah. And another example of how I use the compactness of the camera is photographing basilisk lizard. Thomas, you can see basilisk lizard, I guess, on this picture.
No.
So
I see many green leaves.
Yeah, that's the point. This is just short image of the white forest. This is sample of the forest, which is all around you in the tropics. And the animals have one of the survival strategy. They are moving, they are not moving to avoid to be visible. But here, if you can see here, there is a basilisk lizard on the branch. Can you see it?
No.
Still not?
Maybe it's too small for me.
Oh,
well, there is. Oh, there. This one. Okay. I see.
Okay, here it is. Here it is. And this was part of my trip to Costa Rica. I tried to photograph basilisk lizards, and it's very tough because sometimes you find basilisk lizard after hour of looking at the same place, and after hour the basilisk lizard just slowly moves, and you say, okay, it was here for an hour and I didn't notice. So this is the reason.
Yeah.
And I have a very famous picture, which was awarded a lot of times, of this basilisk lizard mirroring himself in the water. And here is the story. I was sitting nearby the lagoon when they are very common, but hard to observe. And I was sitting by the lagoon. I said, okay, I will be here for 3 or 4 hours until I will see basilisk lizard. And after a while, I didn't count it. I noticed there is a huge, beautiful male laying on the lock, and he was shaking his head. It makes like this. And they do it all the times where they meet other beautiful males. So I was looking around, and I found there is a male sitting on this fallen lock in the water, and the other, which you saw before, was here on this lock. And I said, oh my God. So I tried to get closer and lower, because lower you get, better result you reach. So I tried to walk on this pavement part of the bank, but I realized this is just a grass in the water. So I fall down to the water, and luckily the basilisk was still sitting here. And I took hundreds of pictures of this basilisk sitting on the lock. I tried a wider angle just in case that somebody asked how it looks like, but I took a lot of these reflections. I guess it was hundreds of the pictures, just to make sure at least one will be sharp, because it was so unique moment. So I tried to keep it. And again, it was 115/400 handheld over the lagoon, and 99% of pictures were sharp, like I wish.
I'm just wondering, Peter, has this basilisk actually, after the shooting, has he moved around somewhere else, or was he still sitting there when you were leaving?
After after my short 2 minutes, I guess it was really extensive moment. He was still there, but he
still there.
Yeah,
I'm wondering if he is not this kind of, rubber plastic thing which local people just put there for photographers.
Yeah, possibly. When they saw me that I'm struggling with the other animals in forest, they prepared this. I really don't know. No. It was the other part, because the basilisk, after I shoot him, I mean with camera, he turned his head, and he was sitting a little bit with the backs to my camera. So after I shot him, it was impossible to make the picture again. And after that, he disappears during the day, but I returned to lodge because I was totally wet as I fall in the water. I had my 800 pictures of basilisk. I was 100% satisfied with this. So I don't know what was the next step of this basilisk, but he was alive, definitely, yes.
Yeah, it's a great image, anyhow.
Another feature, or it's not the feature, it's the special lens which I like in a series of Olympus is 8-25, because sometimes I'm taking wide-angle pictures of frogs, lizards, anything which allows me to approach closely. And here is my comparison. I accidentally had all these 5 lenses along with me. Olympus fish eye, which is perfect. I used it before. It's excellent. I also had the Laowa 7.5 and 10. I had the 10 for testing and comparison to my previous lens. I have 12 to 100, which is perfect as well, and brand new 825. And I compare two different things on the lenses. This is really rubber frog. This is not living specimen. But what I tried to test was the shortest distance of focusing of each lens. This is the shortest focus length of the lens, and I try to learn how hard is to deliver lighting from the flash to the scene. For example, if you are photographing from this side, this distance, the frog, it's very hard in a fish eye to get some light among the lens and the frog.
Sure.
This is very same with 12 and 200. Both of the lenses have greatest enlargement of the specimen, but it's very hard to lighten the scene. And after my trials and some testing, I found 855 the most universal, the best for this kind of I would say subject photographing. So I found this lens very versatile and very helpful for this wide angle macro. It's a macro. It's not definitely macro, but it's wide angle close up. It's a better name. So
it's actually quite funny because sorry, Peter, because we many times we talk about our telephoto capabilities of our telephoto lenses, but basically you are showing us that even with very wide angle lens, which is 825, you can shoot just about the same size, same enlargement of the tiny insect, butterfly, whatever, but only with the difference of the background. Because with 825, you see the very wide background, so you actually see the environment in which the animal is acting or behaving.
Yeah, that's my target, because I would like to change the way I'm shooting the animals. I try to avoid to shooting just birds or just birds with telephoto. I'm avoiding to photograph just insects or just insects with a macro lens. I try to switch all the times the angle of view, and that's the reason why I'm publishing just few pictures from the trip. Not many pictures, maybe 20, 25 per trip, because I found it more interesting than produced hundreds of same pictures. So these are the pictures taken with 825. It's wide angle, mostly in the night, because I use it for night photography as well. This picture was awarded by Czech Nature Photo last week as a winner of amphibian and reptiles category. So I'm really proud for this. And yeah, that's the lens which I was looking for years. So it's a perfect one. And the very important for me, starting to be a pro capture feature. Many photographer knows it's a weird feature which takes pictures from the past. And I use it for nesting birds, for example. When I was in Ecuador, there was an opportunity for me to take pictures of toucans, mountain toucans, feeding their youngsters in a hole. And this is the whole scene. At the right, there is a toucan approaching the nest. The nest is here. And there is something like landing trunk. So he just flew here on the landing trunk and jump to the hole to feed the babies. And I used my camera with Pro Capture because you never know when it happens. It can spend on the middle trunk for 1 minute, 2 minutes, 10 minutes, and it was just a split of second when he jumps to the hole. So I use the Pro Capture, and all these pictures are not slow down video. All these pictures are full raw, taken from the porching place.
When you are shooting this Pro Capture, do you shoot? Maybe you have said it already. I probably missed it. Are you using the sequential shooting of what, 60 frames per second, 120 frames per second? Do you limit it somehow?
Yes, it all depends. As you can see, this is in a cloud forest, and definitely there was not enough shutter speed for using all 60 frames per second, but I set 60 frames per second because it was the highest number of frames I can use at this time. And I think it was shooting slower, but I don't know how much slower. The most important part was that I was waiting for a particular moment in the situation. So this is why I set 60 frames per second. And it was split of the second. It was like 1 second of action. So 60 frames per second means you will shoot for 1 second. So that was the reason I was okay with 60 frames per second. If I would photograph something which lasts for 3 or 5 seconds, some action, I would definitely slow down the shutter speed because it keeps you shooting for longer time, for 5-6 seconds. But at this particular moment, it was just wasting of opportunities to get the best picture because it was really sitting toucan, jumping to the hole and back, and it was chop. It was very fast. So that was the reason why I try 60 seconds. And I set 20 seconds to the buffer, to the previous part of the photography.
20 frames. 20 frames.
20 frames in a buffer. I fully press the shutter button. The reason is simple. I usually could predict what happens from the behavior of the toucan. So sometimes I was even too fast, even faster than toucan itself. And if I would set, for example, 30 frames, or 35, which was the highest before, I would maybe miss the right angle of the wings after. So this was a great compromise for me. If I set 60 frames per second, 20 frames in the past is enough for me.
Yeah. So actually, I remember in 2016, actually, we have discussed already when we have met first with the EM1 Mark II, which already did have this Pro Capture functionality, right? It was one of the decisive, let's say, moments or features for you, because you said that this feature, this function is actually so great for you and unknown that you definitely wanted to explore it more in this wildlife environment.
Yeah, it's feature you can use at this kind of trip for 3-4 times, but based on this feature, you get the perfect picture. Of course, without this feature, you can try and you can get sometimes great picture as well of the action moment. But with this feature, it's much more simple, and you have a lot of shapes to choose from. You can see this is the whole sequential. I took the picture. So you have a lot of wing shapes now.
Yeah.
So it's much easier to find the best.
It's all raw images basically. So you just
it's all raw images. That's true. Yeah. So you can compare that. I have to make some clarity and dehaze on the parts of the picture because it was really in a fog. And again, it was awarded in Czech Nature Photo this year as well.
It's a brilliant image. Peter, just one more information to the Pro Capture before you go to focus stacking, because I just figured out, I even have the camera here with me. The Pro Capture is not the innovation from 2016. It has been evolved dramatically in 2016 E1 Mark II, but actually it came to the market with this brilliant camera. I don't know if some of you remember this. This is E100 RS, which actually dates back to 2000. So in the year of 2000, we have introduced this camera to the market, and it already had this. It wasn't called Pro Capture; it was called Pre-Capture functionality. It was actually the fastest sequential shooting camera in the world. It had like 15 frames per second, and it could buffer 5 images into the history. Like now we can buffer a lot more, but basically this is nothing new. But we have invented this feature long time ago, and we just are improving it constantly. So I just wanted to have this kind of history window.
Thank you. And last but not least, I love focus stacking feature. I also, as a Pro Capture, I don't use it much often. I use the single frame most of my time when I'm photographing macro, but sometimes it's really helpful. This is my setup in Ecuador when I found this tree hopper in a highland lodge, and I make a small studio to make the very focused picture. I used because it's very small, it's tiny, it's like 9 millimeters or 8 millimeters at all, and I wish to have it across the whole image. And these plant hoppers or tree hoppers, they have X along with them. So this is the scene I was photographing with the setting before, and you can see there is everything is sharp, everything is in focus, and it was just simple touching on the setting 15 pictures. I started with 15 pictures because I have to learn if my setting of the steps is enough. I use the smallest step, the number 1 for this picture. I took 15 pictures first, and after I pushed the focus bracketing, not focus stacking. And with the same setting, I used 30 pictures, I guess, to get whole image in a depth of field.
Okay.
So this is the result. I started with focus auto stacking, focus stacking, and they moved to focus bracketing, because focus stacking only allows you to use 15 pictures, and for this particular insect, it was necessary over 30. It's a great start. I love it for this moments.
So the focus stacking basically you use for, let's say, some kind of trial out, how it's going to look like, and then focus bracketing you do for the pro shooting, and then you compound it in the computer later on, right?
It all depends on size of the subject. If the subject is bigger, for example, 2 centimeters, 15 frames is perfect. And I can see the whole picture is made by 10 or 12 pictures. It's enough. But in this particular case, it's so small that you have to use more pictures and go beyond the focus stacking, and you have to use bracketing.
Okay. Thanks.
And this is the final part of my extremely long lecture. I guess you are maybe going boring, but you can repeat it later if you wish. This is the weird part on tropics, because a lot of things looks like something different. For example, a lot of katydids looks like leaf, so you have to find them first. And I call this last chapter peekaboo, because it's something which is the forest playing with you. This is my very favorite katydid from Borneo, which is laying.
Which one?
It's a leaf-shaped brown color, so it's very easy to find it.
The one on the left or on the right or in the middle, or where?
Yes, it's here. You can see the eye. So this is the katydid. It looks like leaf. And the behavior is simple. I was approaching the place where it was staying, and after he found the vibrations of my steps, he laid on the leaves. And I really don't understand how I found it. I just walk and say, "Oh my God, it has to be katydid," and it was. But it was in the forest. Everywhere are some leaves. So this is the picture how it looks like if it stands on the leaf. And because its behavior to avoid some predation from the other animals, it can stay there for hours. It's very easy to photograph if you find it, but the key is to find it.
Once I see the legs, I can understand it is some kind of insect, right? But if I didn't see the legs, I mean, I would just say,
this part, yes. So this is the part. And I found a lot of leaf-shaped katydids across the globe, across the tropics. This is from Ecuador. This is extremely beautiful structure, not leaf, but the part of katydid body. This katydid from the close-up. And I really don't understand how Mother Nature makes it. There is some hole in the shape of the katydid. There's another from Costa Rica. And this is from the last trip to Borneo, one of the most weird katydid leaf shaped I ever seen.
It's a nice flower, right?
It's a nice flower with eyes, yes. So all in all, this is why the tropics are still fascinating me. This is why I'm returning to the tropics all the time, because yes, you have a lot of things you have to deal with. You have a lot of mosquitoes, a lot of ants which are biting. There is rain which you have to deal with. But I found tropics extremely powerful for wildlife photography, and I try to return all the time. And I have to say, with Olympus gear, I never regret that I have to keep my full frame or something. It helps me to make my pictures all the time, and I didn't find any moment when I said, oh, poor Olympus. I honestly have to say this. And these are the pictures I took. If I took the other pictures which are weak and which are, I don't know, not sharp, or I don't know what, I would regret. But I have to say, all the features on my Olympus cameras I try to use in the right moment, and I feel it gives me great results. I can shoot wide angle with a flash, with extremely long but still lightweight 150, 400, and these are the tropics. This is the comparison of me as a small, tiny person, 2 meters high, compared to 70 meters high tree. Somewhere in the crown of this tree, there is a place where many things happen, and I will never see it. But I definitely will come back to tropics whenever it's possible, and I would like to feel the sounds and feeling and smell and pain and beauty together again. So that's the final picture of my lecture.
Yeah, I mean, Peter, I have always been describing your images as what I call artistic wildlife, because your images, like those two which are behind me, those which we have just seen today, they are the pictures that you would print and put it into the wall in your living room, wherever in the house, and they will nicely decorate it. In comparison to what I call reportage wildlife, which is something slightly different. You just shoot the
Mhm.
animal because you want to put it into an atlas, or biological
Mhm.
book or something like that. So this is really more artistic kind of photography, and I really appreciate it. Actually, I like it. This was the reason actually why we have met ages ago, because I really loved your images. So I would like to thank you for all that you are doing for your job, for all the brilliant images. But before we end up, finally, we are live 2 hours, 18 minutes already. If you haven't noticed, just for your information. Just let me go briefly, very quickly through some maybe questions which we haven't gone through yet. Do you wear special clothing to help protect yourself? I mean, now we are talking about the insects and all this kind of stuff. Do you have some special like cover, or do you just wear regular clothing?
I in a Borneo, for example, I used long sleeves and long t-shirts, long
Hmm.
shirts, and some repellent, and nothing special. I don't use anything special to avoid the bites, because if I will use something over my head, I will lost my visions,
Yeah.
definitely. So I try to not attract the insects. For example, I really found that if I use a headlight, it really attracts all the stuff, all the mosquitoes. And if I use my light holding in my hand, I can remove it very easily and make the lighting from a different angle. So that's the
Yeah.
one thing which is going against biting.
Sure.
Repellent and long sleeves, and that's it.
Yeah, and we have seen the bites already. Yeah. Another question from Marsha: how do you focus at night while using
Mhm.
flash? Well, that's
Yeah,
a nice question actually, because when it's totally dark, I mean, how do you focus?
yeah. The Olympus is so good; he finds things in the night. No, no, no.
Oh, great.
I'm using a small permanent light inside my diffuser. So there is a small power bank which is connected to small LED light inside the diffuser. It's a weak light, but for the focus, it's pretty okay. And I'm using night live view mode, which is new on OM1, and I previously used light boosting, or I don't know the English name. I think it's a boost on EM1 Mark III.
Yeah,
There was
light boost.
a button which boosted the light. It slows down the frequency of display, and it shows more information from the surrounding. So combination of this two settings, permanent light and night live view, and it focuses perfectly.
Another question from Follow01. Oh, nice. Have you noticed better low light performance with the OM1? Probably compared to the previous cameras, right?
Yes.
I assume.
I have to say, I never used high ISO even with full frame. I guess my limits even with full frame was 6400, and I didn't use it much. I have to say, for the first look on the previous camera and OM1, the main difference is if you use higher ISO, 6400, 8000 or above, the main difference is not grain. The difference is it keeps the colors and contrast, and it's much better than before. I think the grain is very similar, maybe less with the new camera, but it's very similar. But I mean, this is very game-changing in the future. There are a lot of softwares on the market which are working with just noise. For example, the XO Bureau or On1 No Noise, which are not upgraded to OM1 yet, but they will be in June. And I have few pictures I took especially for this purpose to try it. So I have few pictures, 8000 ISO, 10,000 ISO, and I'm waiting for the update of this software to try if they will dig the pictures, the clean picture from what I took. And I believe it will be great because the main difference from last cameras and this camera is keeping colors and contrast. So the only thing you have to keep is the sharpness. If the picture is sharp, these softwares are dealing very, very well with this high ISO. But I have to wait for new version update. It will be in June. So I'm looking forward to try it on my new pictures.
Sure. One question from Richard. Do you lead any travel workshops? I mean, you do a lot of travel workshops. People can find them on your web pages, basically, right?
Most of my trips I presented here were because I organize trips for people. Most of my 40 trips to tropics were as a tour leader. But so far, I lead the trips for people from Czech Republic because it's very easy for me, easy for them. We understand to each other. And so far, I never conduct tours for foreigners. I was thinking about it in 2019 that I could make something 2020, but you know what happens 2020. So we have to deal 2 years with coronavirus. And I was so exhausted with postponing and changing all my trips that so far I didn't have much energy to start to offer the trips again. Because if you offer the trip and people pay their money, and you have to say, okay, you have to wait 1 or 2 years, maybe 3, we don't know. So it's very weird time to organize something. But now, in terms of COVID, it seems to be more or less okay. Depends on what happens on next autumn. But now it seems it's stabilized. At least we have some vaccination, we have some medicaments coming. So from perspective of COVID, it's okay, but there is a war as a new unpredictable part of traveling, and I really don't know what happens. So
Yeah.
All in
No one
all,
knows.
I lead the tours, but I'm still waiting for right time to offer to foreigners.
Sure. Let's keep it to maybe one or two more questions, Peter, because otherwise we are getting close to 2.5 hours. I think
Sure.
we should end up. Do you use high-res mode? This is the one we have not talked about, right? The high-res
Yeah.
shot.
I use high-res mode for some landscape photographs. I don't use it much for animals. I really was angry on me when I was shooting the plant hopper, when I used the focus stacking, because they were motionless. They were staying motionless. I can took hundreds of pictures and they didn't move. And after I took all my focus stacking, I went back to my lodge and slept. And when I woke up, I realized, oh, I have to try high-res mode as well. And I didn't. So sometimes I have to push myself to use this for animals. But yeah, I use it sometimes for landscapes.
Yeah, I think, as you say, I mean, it is a brilliant feature for things that do not actually move. So the landscape is one of the genres. Then, I mean, the interiors architecture would be another one. Product photography. I mean, everything that does not move, then the high-res shot mode can be perfectly used. For animals, if they like really stay still, then it's okay. But if they move, obviously, it's not the very best to use. Last but not least, let me see. When do you when do you aim to get the OM1 guided completed by?
Yeah,
Peter,
one
this
day.
is the last question. So, sorry, I didn't want this to be the last question, but let's make it the last question for today. And if you have the reply, I don't know if you have it.
Yes, I have a lot of questions on this topic in my email address. Yes, I will make my best in the next few weeks to finish it before I leave to Pantanal. I'm leaving at the last week of the June, so I hope, fingers crossing, I will have opportunity to finish it. But I have a lot of personal and business reasons why it's not finished yet, because I have a father of two small children, and etc. etc. I will not waste your time with this, but there's a lot of different things which are going to my life along with my photography path. So yes, I will do my best to finish it as soon as possible. It's half. It's in half. Let's say half part of development.
Okay, and very last but not least, Pavel Pližinger is just saying us, hi guys. Just for
Hi,
you to
Pavel.
know, Pavel Pližinger is another Czech-based photographer and OM system ambassador, but he's not shooting wildlife. He is shooting with the live composite mode. So he's the light painter. He's the light painting photographer, basically. But anyhow, Peter, thank you so much for today's presentation, for your everything that you told us, all your tips and tricks. Thank you for the images you have just shown us, and for all of you who haven't had a chance to see all this 2.5 hours talk today, please don't worry. I mean, it is still on YouTube. It will be there for another maybe years, so don't worry. You can you don't even have to like watch it all at once. It's like a long movie, actually. Well, what is the War of Rings is like 2.5, maybe 3 hours, right?
Yeah, the only difference is the movie has some point. This is this has no point.
Yeah, so there are some movies which are 2 to 3 hours. So this was not a movie, but this was a really brilliant and inspirative for me. It was very inspirative moments. So once again, I'm just putting down the webpage. If you haven't had a chance to see this all, and if you don't want to listen to it, and you just want to see the images, go to surasura.com. There is a gallery of images. There is some tips and tricks. There's many articles in the blog part of the website. So you will see and read everything there. It is also in English, so don't worry about not understanding. You will fully understand. Peter, thank you very much again.
Thank you, and thank you for your patience. 2.5 hours is really good.
We do have this nice Czech saying, Czech photographers wish each other have a good light, because you need a good light for taking pictures. So this is have a good light. I don't know if there is some kind of similar expression in English. Probably yes. So thank you all for watching, and have a good light. Bye-bye.
A good light and good stabilization if not.
Thank you. See you. Bye-bye. See you next time.
Good night.